Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the world's most highly rated podcast. It's the number one podcast across all platforms and all genres, the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. And we're very excited. I'm very excited because I've got my dental bestie here. No offense, Pete. He's taking the day off, but I've got Erika on the pod. And if you don't know Erika, you are in for a real treat. This pod is extremely important, probably the most important pod we've released in a long time, because it's not only going to be designed for you as the doctor, but we want to make sure this gets into the hands of some of your team, whether that's an office manager or someone that's showing a lot of promise in your organization. This is the pod for both of you. So Erika, you were just telling me that we celebrated a recent anniversary. What is that? How many
Yeah,
years is that?
16 years working together come July. So it goes by so fast. We were just also talking about, a little bit about me and how I started here. And I started as a dental assistant for those of you that don't know. And, now I do the operations side. I'm kind of, multiple hats on the business side. And I didn't have any formal business training beforehand. I think one of the things that, I wanted to communicate, we were on a call with our mastermind group. So we do coaching and consulting for multiple dental practices across the country. And when we were on that call, and I was talking a little bit about my story, because we have so many people in our practices that have potential just like me, that even though we don't have formal training in something doesn't mean that we don't have the potential to then become that person. I think a lot of times it's even easier in business because some formal training doesn't necessarily prepare you for what you really experience in the real world. And so where I'm getting with that, so we were on this call with the our mastermind group, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that people struggle with finding their key person or their office manager. I hear that all the time. Where do I look? How do I find this person? And honestly, I think it's less about finding somebody that's at the peak, like that's there, that has all the skills to be able to do what your practice needs, than it is about growing and evolving. And so it's like I am uniquely suited for what I do here at SDG because I was created, not necessarily found. And, when we are looking for key people, and especially this is what we do in our organization, is we're looking for people that, number one, align with our values and align with the types of things that we enjoy, which is continuing to pursue growth and learning, a lot of continuing education, but also people that just have potential. And all day long you can teach anybody anything. You just have to have the person that has the right mindset and the desire to want to grow. And I'll just say, I don't want to get too off track, but one more thing that I see often when I am doing some coaching with office managers, and I do that through the mastermind group as well, is that you can't want something more than somebody else. And so even when you see someone has potential, and we've actually even come into those things ourselves, is if that person doesn't want it, there's no amount of education or training that you can force them to be that. And so just
And there's
as
also
we're,
another, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
I was just saying,
I was just going to say that, if you want something more than someone else wants it for themselves, you'll piss them off in the process too. They'll quit and
absolutely.
you'll piss them off too. So it's not just, it's not going to work. It's going to be bad.
Absolutely. And the reason why I wanted to go into that a little off tangent is because as we start getting into some of these things and people get excited, or people, start saying, gosh, I want to find somebody like Erika, or I don't have anybody like Erika, is you can have somebody like me. And it just takes the same level of work, support, training, education, and time to develop that person, as long as they have potential and share those same types of values that you do.
And we're going to get into a lot of this too. So it's a very powerful statement you just made. And I want to admit something too. So when you were version 1.0, let's call you 5.0 now, when you were 1.0 sterile, when you first were leaving clinical and wanted to run the place, I didn't actually know if you could do it. And I was under the persuasion of there is this already pre-built Erika that's run a DSO or whatever, and I'm going to find this person. So while looking for the most perfect person, I squandered an opportunity to probably make it faster and more efficient. Like, listen, obviously everything goes for a reason. But in hindsight, I just want to speak to those dentists who are like, yeah, but I don't really have anybody. People are created and not necessarily found. And the value thing that you mentioned is the most important thing. If you don't share someone's values, you won't have a relationship. Think about your friends, your spouses, the people you have long-term relationships with. You admire their values. You forgive them because they're human. I know Erika, I do some things that Erika probably pisses her off, but at the end of the day, we have a value alignment. And when you have value and cultural alignment, anything can be created. And I think it's so much better to build the right person or promote from within than get some random, I hear so many stories, and I know Erika, you do too, because you get the benefit of working with the doctors as well, about this maverick person that was hired. And yes, they're expensive, but look at their resume, and it just doesn't work sometimes, oftentimes.
Yeah.
So I want to jump right in. So this podcast is late because we wanted to do this right after the year closed, and Erika and I are super busy, and I'm just happy we're getting it done now. But this is I'm starting with the end, and then we're going to begin with the beginning. The end of the story is 2024. We finished our year up 8.5%. I'm sorry, 8.57% above 2023, which is cool. 8.5% growth on the growth on the top line is something to be commended for. But what really was the genesis of this podcast was what happened to the net. So the net increased from 2024 to 2023, 57%. So, we did a good job on gross, but under Erika's leadership, we did a net profit increase of 57%. And this is right at the time when the headlines are all about the Department of Government Efficiency, DODE, as it's called. And I'm like, Erika, we need to do one with you called the DODE, the Department of Dental Efficiency, because what we did was outstanding. And Erika has a very unique position in that she works with Bulletproof doctors and works with their office managers. So there's a massive inconsistency between what does the dentist say they want and what's happening at the office manager level, and how sometimes and oftentimes the office managers are frustrated because docs are all saying, we got to make profit and blah, 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 and we profit over this or that. And then the office manager saying, well, doc just gives away treatment. Doc's like, don't charge this person. Don't worry about that. Or he's making loans to his employees. And I want to show our past of how things like that started to happen, and how Erika finally had to say things like, hey, if you want to do that, you can go ahead and spend that money. You're just not going to write a business check for that expense. You're going to write a Craig Spodak personal check for that expense.
Yeah. I think what's really key there is, when you're developing somebody and, developing into a leadership type role, there comes a certain point where it has to be communicated that that person has some sort of permission or authority to push back, or at least bring up the conversation about, hey, this is your practice, you get to make the choice, but let me kind of paint the picture of what the choice is going to do to the business. And so if you're okay at the expense of the business, then you understand these are the results that we're going to get, or lack thereof. And, early on, it took me a little bit of time to feel like I had that type of permission to be able to push back, because again, not having the experience, I trusted that Dr. Craig did know and did have all the answers. And so when he said, do X, Y, and Z, I just assumed that he understood at what expense or at what result. And then I followed. So many years, I did exactly what he told me to do without questioning. And then when we got into situations where we're like, why isn't our situation changing? Why aren't we, keeping more profit? Or why aren't we growing? Or why do we have these issues with the team? It was more or less, here's what you're going to do, versus having a conversation about what is actually happening in the organization. What am I seeing? And do I feel comfortable enough to be able to tell him that some of those decisions actually might not be the best decision for the practice? So that took time for me to build that communication confidence, for sure.
I think one of the things too that's important is that, when you're choosing to find the counterpart, the implementer that you're looking for, you tend to crave similarity. You want someone that's just like you. because it's comfortable. You want someone that's like thinks like you. Like when you're dating somebody for the first time, like, oh my God, you like sushi? I like sushi. Let's get married. That's not the commonality is not going to be the strength. If you want to have a really powerful relationship, you need to hire somebody and work with somebody who sees things completely different. And when you have someone that sees things different, there's kind of conflict. I don't know what a better word is, but it's a conflicting idea of like, hey, I know you see this, but we have to work on this. So what I was, Erika came in at a very tumultuous time for the practice. We were growing very fast, double-digit growth every year. And that can cause a problem. So, just for lack of, without sharing details, let's just presume when we were doing $1 million top line, we made $100,000 net. So we went 1 million, made 100, 2 million, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. And it was working out quite linear until we got to this point in the past where we were doing $8 million top line and $100,000 bottom line. And at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, Erika, but I think I was collecting about $1.5 million of dentistry and not paying myself for it. So if you would have just put in a 30% or 35% associate wage into my $1.5 million, we would have been negative 400 grand. So we're in like a shit show. So Erika comes in and has to learn the process. And I couldn't even tell her. I couldn't even communicate what the problem was. I just had to have her kind of learn. And I was very fortunate that I have a lot of business friends that are, we think of like, okay, in dentistry, if you can't find, there was no mastermind for us. It would have been great for us because we would have, created years of opportunity in months. But we had to use people that owned like truck dealerships and flooring companies. And business at the end is all the P&L and it's all kind of the same language, but it was a hard step for us to take to say like, how does this truck dealer know how to make efficiency for us?
Yeah,
And go ahead.
well, I just want to say if we were really going back again to the beginning, because I want to have people really see how we got here and, it wasn't overnight. I mean, it's been 16 years and I think we're finally at this point where we're just like, wow, this is like legit. Um, but when I was your dental assistant, and again, back before I even knew that I liked the business side of things, I just, didn't wake up saying, let me be an office manager. That was never like a dream. And, you would kind of talk about some of the frustrations that you have. And maybe at that time, you were really more or less just venting. And I would listen, and then my automatic is to be a good problem solver. And so even though I didn't have experience necessarily in the problem that you're trying to solve, I'm just really creative. And I would just start kind of throwing things maybe that are out of the box or out of the ordinary solutions. And then you would almost like pause in your tracks for a second and you'd be like, oh yeah, no, that's really good. And then we started talking more about the business side of things. And then we started problem solving together. And that's really where I started to discover that I loved the business side of things. I never knew that I did. And, then you, I think, started to trust and to train and to pour into me because you realized that I had this other type of skill set that was very valuable to the organization. One of the other things when you talked about this in the beginning, essentially I was maybe trying to be you. And I think that a lot of time what happens is, you have the doctor owner and they feel like, well, if I need somebody to replace me as the office manager, I'm the doctor owner, I'm the dentist, I'm the CFO, I'm the operations director, office manager, everything. And now I need to find somebody to take that off my plate. And therefore, I'm going to find somebody like me. And that may not be the best fit because we do have complementary skill sets. And so earlier on, even though we realized that we were good at problem solving together, there was totally a lot of friction, a lot of miscommunication, lack of communication because we just thought differently.
Burnout because you're
Hmm.
trying to be me. So we had, at that time, data from a personality testing that we're using that Erika's trying to be this raging extrovert, trying to be like the cruise director. And and that's not her style. And I love being cruise director, but you sit me down with a spreadsheet alone for 3 hours, I can off myself. So it's this inauthentic thing of like, and I didn't want to be replaced. I want something to do. I just was doing so many things that I didn't like doing that I couldn't see my way through it. Like that was a time when I was contemplating like exiting or selling just because I couldn't see my way through it. So
Well, I think that's really important that you said that because, it isn't all or nothing. You didn't have to fully be replaced. I was replacing the job responsibilities that you didn't want or that, you thought I had maybe a better skill set for or patience to do. And I think that was important. You got to keep what you love and what you're good at. And I got to take on what I love and what I'm good at. And I didn't have to be all things to all people, and you didn't either. And I think that's really imperative to know is like you don't have to find somebody that's both social and analytical, or somebody that is getting the team emotionally excited, the cheerleader, and the part of the practice that is the behind the scenes numbers, paperwork, payroll, all the fun stuff that nobody likes to talk about. You don't have to be both of those people. And, once we kind of figured that out, it took a lot of pressure off of both of us. I mean, certainly me, it took a lot of pressure off of me. I felt like,
oh, me too. More off of me than you, I
yeah,
think.
I
But yeah,
felt so much more fulfilled and happy because I didn't have to pretend, and I have a fair degree of social, but I like my social circles so much smaller. And we have an organization with close to 50 people. And so, when I was constantly put in this position where I had to be a cheerleader for 50 people, it was definitely more stressful.
yeah, I'm so happy. I just want to double click on the point you just made because I guarantee there's so many people that are listening to this podcast, whether they're office manager or dentist, and they are saying, they're breathing a sigh of relief because if you're looking for this unicorn that has analytical extroversion, emotional connection, it's like it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. That's why if you look at any great company, Apple, there's Wozniak and Jobs, there's always multiple people that make a role together, and it's actually a more fun way of doing things. Don't go through life trying to marginally improve your weaknesses. It is a fool's errand. Stay in your zone of strength and just be proud of it. Own it. That's not me. And that now it's like Eric and I say to each other, like, hell no, that's me. That's not me. That's you. You're doing this one. I'm doing this one. And I'm amazed, like marvel, just in the way Erica maybe marveled at me, like, oh my God, you get up on stage and you do all this stuff. That's so impressive. The same way that she says something of that nature to me, I'm amazed, like literally dumbfounded the way she acts and behaves in certain areas that would be super difficult for me because I care too much what people think. She can just look at something so process oriented and she sees now like, hey, you're not going to like this answer, but this needs to be done. And she's so sure of it that at this point in our relationship, if she says this must be done, I don't care how much I protest, I'm going to do it. I might ask her 9 times, like on the way to go do it after 7 times of conversation. Erica, are you sure this needs to be done? Yes. Okay. And then I go do it. And it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. And I want that for everyone. I want you to develop the people around you, the team that you have around you, and not just be looking outside because the power of your potential lies within the walls of your practice. Oftentimes, if you read the book, like Turn the Ship Around, it's a very famous fable, a military cruiser, destroyer, sub or something, where it was the worst performing sub in the entire Navy. And they kept the same team, same people, got a new captain, and it became the best. So if you're just being honest, dentist, doctor that's listening to this right now, you think you need new people, you're in Seattle, you're in San Francisco, wherever, Mobile, Alabama, the people here are not the same as where you are. You're being a finger pointer, a finger person. You're pointing outward. The problem lies within you. And I just wish for everyone that you have the ability to learn from what we've already learned. So you don't have to go through the pain. I mean, we went through it. We're probably better for it, but we didn't have to suffer this long because we didn't have to do this. There could have been a hack.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, at one point, and for those of you that have listened to the podcast quite a bit, I mean, at one point I gave up, I quit, I gave my resignation letter. So, our start was definitely, not just like a smooth line. I didn't just evolve and we weren't perfect leaders for each other and for our team. And, what I also learned during that time is that, when I don't know the right questions to ask and I assumed way too much, and I think vice versa, we also spoke very big picture and high level. I mean, that's kind of the language that Dr. Craig likes to operate within. But my language is give me the details, give me the steps. And so now I was trying to translate what big picture was for him in terms of how do we actually do it like step by step on the ground. And that was a challenge. But if we go back to, really big key lesson, one, if you can promote from within, that's obviously better because that team already knows your culture and they probably have a certain level of rapport with your team and trust. So implementation is going to be a little bit smoother and easier, but also really clearly defining the roles. I think a lot of times I'll see where someone's like, okay, you're going to be my office manager. Again, that's a big picture, broad statement, office manager. And there's so much that you can assume and fill in on what that means. And that's definitely what happened to me. What does that mean? And honestly, early on when I got this position, I was like, good, these are all the things most important to me that I'm going to start tackling, not knowing that Dr. Craig really wanted me to focus on the profit side. I didn't look at that at all. I didn't even know how to read a P&L. I didn't know how to look at it, what I was looking at. And so I started working on all the wrong things, quote unquote. I was missing the expectation. Like I was working really, really hard. And then I felt like out of left field when, he thought or maybe would say I wasn't doing a good job. It was kind of really like, wow, look at all these changes, look at all these amazing things that I'm doing, or look at all these things that I'm working really hard. But we weren't communicating clearly enough to know what our expectations were for each other and for that role. And
And
so that took
honestly,
us time.
though, in full disclosure, Erica, I actually didn't know what I wanted.
Mhm.
So, like a person like me imagines the dinner. The dinner has 3 courses. I don't really know what they are, but it has a salad. It looks really nice. It's outside. It's like 72 degrees. I can picture this beautiful dinner. I
Mhm.
just don't know. And you're like, okay, how many? Is it an eggless Caesar salad? Is the steak medium rare? And I'm like, I don't really know. Like, it's just a dinner, but it has to be really a perfect dinner, Erica. It's got to be perfect. So in the beginning, Erica's telling me like, this is early on. I just remember like, hey, I got 2 eggs. I mixed them like this. I did that. And this is not just, I'm not trying to make little light of it. It's very important stuff. It's like, what percentage profit do we need to be? Like what is how existential, how much cash do we have? This is not the dinner analogy is a really poor analogy because it paints to something that's luxurious. This is an existential problem. If I'm doing
Yeah.
1.5 million dollars of dentistry with my own hands, I cannot just do 3 or 4. And there's some doctors out there that run all on X practices that are doing that right now, but their practices are bleeding money and they're just working their ass off and making it all work. But what happens if you get a wrist injury? What would have happened, Erica, if I would have broken my wrist snowboarding for 6 weeks during this time?
Okay.
Everyone gets fired.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone.
Hmm.
6 weeks, 7 weeks, 4 weeks, gone. We're
Yeah.
all gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just didn't know how to describe it. So let's go through what was the first step. So the first step was like you just started basically understanding the P&L and asking me questions and then guiding. But let's go through like the first level of your involvement.
Yeah. First level is we realized we needed to communicate more often because at the time the communication was kind of willy nilly. And so we have a standing meeting every single Wednesday, whether we have any set agenda or not.
That
And we
wasn't how it
started
started though,
communicating.
because I was clinical though, right?
You were,
I
yeah, yeah. You were
So
still
we were like
clinical.
ships passing in the night. We still weren't communicating for like a year, 2 years, which
Yeah.
another pitfall. Like number one, if you're going to have this promotion and you got to have, I would say that weekly meeting has to start immediately every week, whether you have something or not.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we started doing was actually measuring. There was a lot of like emotional presumptions, like this is how I feel things are. And then we turned the lights on, dental intel. I think we turned that on, gosh, 2000, what, 16,
Yeah, but I never looked at it.
17, right around there.
I never looked at it.
Uh, that was my job. But we started measuring things because I think that for me, being more on the analytical, not as emotionally reactive side was okay, things are bad. Like, what does that mean? How bad? Like, what's the measurement? And then how are we going to test that the solutions we're putting in place are actually yielding any positive results? if we go back to like having the broad and the generalization too, at that time it was like, we need to make more money. And so what I heard was, we need to make more money, top line growth. And what I think you actually meant at that time but didn't communicate was, we need to keep the money we're making, or maybe both. We need top line, but we also need to keep it. Because at that time, when our top line was, I mean, doubling year over year, I didn't necessarily think the first problem to look at was not having us, keeping the money that we were making. Like, that wasn't kind of like a problem that stood out, because in my mind, I'm thinking, look at all this extra money that we have. So even communicating just a little bit more clearly, what problem are we actually trying to solve, um, was that step.
Yeah, and then getting laser focused around what is a good profit,
Mhm.
and what is a decent profit margin, and looking at it, and you just uncovering things like, why are we paying for this subscription? Like, do you know whose phone this is? I'm like, I have no idea. This employee hasn't been here for 3 years. Because it's just like, I think if you're a person like me, is a big picture person, and a percent of the business. I'll thank John for this. I remember the conversation. I remember exactly where we were when he said it. But he was like, remember, he said about a percent really matters when you have $8 or $9 million. It matters for everybody. But a percent to me is like so boring, and it's not going to add up. And the problem is, when we're really being honest about dental efficiency, it's not sexy. It's not like you're going to catch $300,000. You're going to catch a series of $5 and $7 and $10,000 savings, but compounded together is how you get to that 57% increase in profit. One of the things he said to us was, every day you have a morning huddle. At the time, it was a half hour every day. He pulled
Mhm.
out his calculator. He looked at our overhead of our salaries, and I don't remember the number, but he's like, this meeting costs you X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Could this meeting be less time? And we're like, yeah. And,
Yeah, even just
sorry.
being able to connect with people, and having that network, and this is kind of how Bulletproof evolved. You and Pete reaching out to one another, and just kind of getting your problems, solved just between you guys, and developing that professional relationship there. And then it grew with being able to have other dentists, like-minded. And gosh, what a blessing that was during COVID, because navigating something no one has ever done before, and now you've got this mastermind group, these people, all different places all over the country, creating and sharing best practices and what works, and problem solving. It was so beautiful.
Yeah,
And
it was really cool.
that was, yeah, it was really cool. But even things like that, you don't even know to look at it like that. And then once we got that idea, then it was like, what else are we doing that we actually really, that has no point? I think we never asked, we do now, but we never asked that question often enough. We've always done this, therefore we're going to move on to something else. But you have to question, because what you're doing, is it still working? Is it still giving you the same results? Because at one point there was a reason. And so we had these longer meetings because of, a former coaching consultant that we had said that that's what we needed. So therefore we did it, and no one questioned the need after, until John. And that was really huge. The other thing is I think people really put a lot of trust in their CPA, and I'm not saying like not to, but I think we give them more benefit of the doubt that they actually really know what they're doing in terms of what's best for your practice. And we're all different. We all need different things that will help us grow, or that will not allow us to hinder our growth. I think sometimes we get bad advice, and we certainly have too, that gave us the opposite of what we were trying to create. And and that's why it's important to look at it. And if we're talking about profit and loss statements, back in the beginning, we were not looking at them consistently. Honestly, we might have even been looking at them, I mean, just a couple times a year. And with our CPA, and again, not even for me, knowing the best questions to ask on how
Those were
to.
torturous meetings, Erika. I just remember them, just
Mhm.
going through, like, listing it all. A CPA, they had no understanding. And also, all they could do was compare past expenses. So what you just described before a moment ago is called zero-based budgeting. It's like first principles thinking. So rather than look at like your costs and say, can we save money here? Look at it from zero. Does this even make sense? Why are we doing this thing? Why do we have this subscription to this service? Do you log in? No, I don't actually. Okay, well then it's gone. Never mind saving 20% of it. Can I replace this service with another suitable service and save 20%? Zero-based budgeting is looking at it from zero. What value does it add? Does it add the $5,000 a year in value? Heck no, Erika, adds no value. Okay, gone, gone, gone. So that's like why this is called the Department of Dental Efficiency. Like, let's just take it, for example, those meetings with our CPA. He couldn't even understand when we started using dentalmerchant.com as an example and saving money on our credit cards. Kevin, the CPA, Kevin, right? Was that his name?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, oh, look at this. You guys are not taking credit cards anymore. You know, are you taking half the credit cards? I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, your fees are down by half. So I guess people are moving to cash. And then you're like, wait, that's because of that, you know, dentalmerchant.com. We had them negotiate our credit card fees, because what we would do typically is go in and negotiate, and then, you know, they'd give us a great discount, and then 6 months later, it slowly erodes and goes back up. It's actually happening right now. You're on the phone giving them a beat down. But, you know, having that engagement with them, it's like, you know, that just that constant efficient conversation about why are we doing this? What's the point? And now you've gone through with all of it. Now it's like, why the chapstick? Because I like it. Well, do you like it for $13,000, Craig? I'm like, shit, 13. Yeah, I kind of do. But, you know, at least we know, you know, versus like, it's just constantly being analytical. And Randy, I remember Randy had a conversation with you recently. Randy's like, to Erika, your job is to constantly watch expenses. They will just creep up. So when things are bad, and things are bad, if a COVID 2.0 happens, you, as where your position, you need to make sure the company makes money even in COVID. So see something coming, react ahead of time. It's not that things are good, you make money. When things are bad, you make money too. It was a very interesting conversation he had with you.
That was a very profound lesson because, you know, also along the same lines, what I had learned, and I forget who it was that had said it, was, um, you know, you have to put the right people in control of the things they can control. And so what that means is your team can control top line. The people, whether that's the practice owner and then your office manager, if they have this responsibility of the profit, we control the expenses. And so, you know, then I was like, okay, this is all right. Now I'm moving into understanding, clearly defining what everybody's role and how they're going to contribute to making all of this happen. And then when we talk about even during COVID, and one of the things that I had done during that time, not knowing how long we were going to be shut down for or anything like that, is I stopped for a second. I'm like, okay, what services do we pay for that we're paying for monthly that we're not going to be using because we're shut down? We don't need to be paying a bill for services that we don't use. And so I got on the phone and I was making calls on, you know, hey, let's put a pause, let's put a pause, let's put a pause, auto shipments, put a pause. So it is a proactive mindset. And it really stems from just being curious. And I'll say, even when looking at the P&L now, I scroll every single line item. Yes, we have a CPA. Yes, we have a bookkeeper, and they do their part. And I check their work. And even then, I'm asking questions about these expenses, what they're for, you know, what the purpose is. Is the expense actually, and sometimes you can't really measure this, but does it have some degree of impact in having us make more money? You know, and that's kind of how my brain works. And the part of the value I think I bring to that relationship is the curiosity, but also then trying to really correlate the things that we do. Are they leading to actionable results, which is making or keeping more money?
And sometimes it's not only does it keep more money, but it makes your life easier. Like I don't
Mhm.
want to use any, you know, more examples, but like the payroll company, which will be remain nameless. If you're curious, you can email me. We have no relationship with them, but like you said, hey, not only saving X amount of dollars, but this is significantly less work for me with 401k match and all that. Like it was crazy. So like I think this idea that in business you're just going to set it all up and it's just going to cruise, it's never going to happen. you have to keep analyzing. Is there new software? Is there new technology? Is there something new that can do everything we want and help us save? And with AI now, we have so many opportunities, by the way, so many opportunities in dentistry that are not going to disrupt us, that are just going to add to efficiency. You know,
I'll just along that same context. So when we think about we have a need for somebody to do something, the first thought is we need to hire. But if you take a pause for a moment and say, let me look into the other resources, the AI or third party companies, can they do it in a fraction of the time and perhaps for the same or less money? And, these are the decisions that we're making as well, is that we want our team to be patient facing, doing things that only team can do. And then anything else that can be, uh, put to a third party or to AI, we want to maximize and optimize there for those programs.
yeah,
And
if you think
talk
about what,
about gaining time back. I mean, it's definitely much more, of a time save to not have to manage an additional team member than it is just to manage the company that you work with.
and then there's other things too, like adding a full-time employee, an FTE versus a part-time employee, like taking someone that's in your organization already and giving them a couple more dollars per hour to do another job that would normally be potentially another full-time employee. So there's a way, and maybe you could talk about the story with our friend here in the office about facility manager. Would you mind going into that, like your idea behind that and why you did it?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a full-time facility director. He wasn't in the office full-time. And of course, costs, were going up and, he wanted to come in and, have a big salary increase. And so my thought was, well, we really do want to have somebody physically present in the office because when emergencies happen, especially, if you have a toilet overflowing or a flood or something like that, I mean, time is very, um, imperative at that point. And can this provide an opportunity for one of our existing team members to make more money? As much, and I'm so glad that you're bringing this up, as much as we talk about saving money, the motivator is not at the expense of your team. We invest in our team, we pour in them, their education. And part of the problem that I'm always trying to solve is how can I help my team make more money by having the practice make and keep more money. So it's not at the expense of that. And so the problem solving for this particular team member is they came from a background of property management. So I'm like, this is great. And they were wonderful in their job. They've been here for close to 2 years in the call center, and they were working 4 days a week, had no objections to adding an additional day. And so I was like, wow, this is going to be such a great fit, somebody in office that has another skill set, because when nothing's going wrong in your facility, that facility director then is doing what? And guess what? He's answering the phones and he's helping with patient um, administrative type responsibilities. And so it was just such a win-win. He got to make more money and we got to check all the boxes that fit for the practice.
And
you know go ahead.
and that's just a great example of people finding, and I love what Erika just said. And I want to double click on that because what we think is we'll trim our way to success. And what we have higher team salaries right now than we've ever had. We've hit, I think, what, January, February, March, April, May, 5 months, correct me, 5 months of bonus
Hmm.
every single month.
Every month.
So there's a way to have your team make more money. But what Erica said earlier is have people in positions of things that they can control. So if your team is in control of net profit, they're going to be completely feeling chopped off at the knees because you decided to do this or that. And that they had no domain over that. They had no control over that. So you put people, especially your clinical team, in control of the areas that they can control, and you handle that at profit. And by the way, with bonuses, make sure that you're setting targets that still don't break the bank. There's a lot of dentists that I know, and we were guilty of that as well, that had bonus targets that were such that the bonus was being paid at the expense of the organizational profit, meaning you were bonusing with dollars you actually didn't have.
Mhm.
So we like to believe at Bulletproof and our ethos that team salaries, including all benefits, everything included, should be at that 28% or less, ideal, as low as it could possibly go. So our bonus targets are built so that we can be at what, 25%,
So
including a
that's my sweet spot. The 25% is I don't that's the max for us, including, all the benefits that you just described. So that's my max. We hover right around anywhere between 22 to 24 on, any given month. But that's the budget, that's the cap that we have for that. But it also for being able to make decisions. I remember really 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 early on when I had just got the responsibility of like, hey, you're the office manager now, so therefore you're going to hire people. Okay, I've never done that before. I've never done an interview, hosted an interview before. um so I was just kind of just taking it a step at a time and just kind of doing and learning from the fails. And one of the questions that I had, actually, and Dr. Craig, you have the answer at that time, is I went to him and I go, hey, how do we know how much we can afford? And you were like, what
yeah,
are you
yeah,
talking about? And I was like, well, we're bringing on a dental assistant. Like, what tenure level, like, can we afford? Like, am I just like carte blanche? Like, hey, I find somebody and we can just pay them, $30 an hour, but our budget was 12, So, even having an answer to that type of question, which we've learned now much later on, was very important. You need somebody, but what's the pay range that can serve the practice at that time? So, um, I think some of the other lessons that were really important too is that when you do pay bonuses, the numbers that you use, it has to be on collections, which is money that actually hits the bank. And I hear so often that people pay their providers, their hygienists, their doctors, and even bonus on top of production numbers, which is not actual real money that you have to pay on. And that's a big trap.
and the other thing is, the language of business is always percentage. So with our masterminders, we're always trying to encourage them. Like, I know I'm going to use percentages once they get bigger. Right now, we're just using dollars. Don't use dollars, because your percentage, you may say, this hygienist is able to generate $150 of profit. And then, their productivity increases and maybe it's $300 of profit. But in actuality, your margin eroded. You were making 15% profit on your hygienist. And now, even though they're making more money in absolute dollars, the margin was eroded. Now it's 8%. So it's really important for people to understand this. And teams don't get it. I remember I was part of a um, hygiene retreat that Bulletproof had, and I stopped in briefly. And I was talking to one of the hygienists, and the hygienist was saying about how doctor is generous or not generous. Doctor was generous with this thing, but maybe not as generous over here with this thing when we asked him about that. And I said, well, why do you say it's generous? Are you making more money as hygienist? She said, yes, all of us are making about 20% more today than we were before COVID. I said, do you believe that she was the hygiene lead of like a 4 hygiene person team? I said, do you believe that you all are doing 30% more productivity? She said, absolutely not. So I said, so is doctor's paying you with dollars he's creating from his dentistry? He's subsidizing your job. It is our belief, Erika's and my belief, that you as a team member of an organization can build your own raise. You can create organizational value and participate in the upside of that. I wouldn't mind you talking about a recent um, thing that we had with one of our team members who was looking to just get a raise across the board, and you had a comp plan for this person, and and this person was kind of bucking at you because you were saying like, hey, this is the comp plan, this is how it will work. Add this level of money for the organization and you will be paid for it. And she didn't want to believe you or didn't like it and wanted to meet with all of us dentists as well on the side. So go ahead and talk about that if you don't mind. I think it's a powerful lesson.
Yeah. One of the things I think that I do well is that I stick to my principles, and I don't like to violate rules or break rules just in general in my life. Like, I'm less likely to break a speed limit. Like, I just like can't do it. But it definitely applies here in business as well. And so I knew, this person wanted to come and make more money, and I agree. I'm like, listen, I want you to be able to make more money as well, and so here's how we can do it. I take this approach, and this is something we teach our team as well, even when it comes to patients. What can we do versus what we can't? Because it's as easy as I could have said no raise, make this person, upset or potentially leave the organization. They've been here for 10 plus years, very valuable. Instead, I said, well, we can get you more money, but let's focus on how we can do that. And they also have a big part of that as well. And we're very transparent. So we do talk numbers, we share numbers with our team. Anybody that wants to know what I know, I'm going to tell them exactly what I know, and I'm going to train them to the level of detail they want. And I think that's important because you're also training your team to be problem solvers as well, which provides a lot of freedom just in time and stress. The more they can problem solve and leave you out of it, I think the better. And in this instance, yeah, she came, she wanted a set flat dollar amount, per hour more. And, she is a dental hygienist 1 day a week. And so I said, hey, this is where we can get that raise based off of your collections, your productivity in that dental chair. And we built that plan. Yes, she definitely was still really, wanting, I get it. It's consistent to have the dollar or two more an hour, but there's no way to actively, measure the impact or the growth to the practice other than what she is doing productively in that hygiene care. And so I said, listen, the more productive you get a percentage of every dollar above this amount. And she has hit that bonus since we implemented it in February every single month. And so she's taking home almost another paycheck every month just in that bonus. And her hygiene productivity has tripled. So it's a win for her and it's a win for our business as well.
And it's a meritocracy too. It's not like, the work relationship can be a little like a mom and dad relationship. Like, hey, mom, can I get this? Yes, you can. No, you can't. This is our feelings. And it really feels like you're held hostage to the whims of the people who control you. That kind of harkening back to the comment that hygienist made about doctor being generous. He's not being generous. It's just you guys are not, you guys are playing a sport and the rules are ambiguous. So for this person that we're just talking about in our office, I guarantee you net she feels better. She didn't get it because Erika was benevolent. She didn't get it like, good girl, good job, good dog, here's a treat. She earned that dollar amount. And people just know, like when you get a handout, people don't feel in their domain of control and also doesn't feel good. She did it. So you created the framework for her to do it. So that's a real win. She earned every dollar of it because what Erika was telling her, she did not like. And she actually said, I would like to call an all partner meeting in. And not that she didn't like it. She just wanted to petition to the feelings of the partners. And Erika's like, I support it, but these are the details. And I want everybody to have all the information. And, how many of us honestly would have just caved in and be like, screw it. Let's just give it to her. She's super valuable. She deserves it. She's good, but not really. That kind of shafts the business because people have to earn their way. And what we wound up doing with her, especially the fact that it's working better than what she asked, is creating more value for her as a person as well. Gave her the framework to earn more.
And I think also what provides a level of happiness is feeling like you are in control. So why is it that we have to put our income into the hands of somebody else that potentially once a year they can choose if I am adding more value and make more money? And so how do we make that a more objective process? And that's exactly why we've done that, is tying it to the performance, her individual performance and the performance of the business. We do this in so many different areas for different team members, and it feels good. And then what also happens, the culture it's very cohesive. It's a very like collaborative environment where one is helping the other because they are seeing their direct impact on the business. And I think that we talk a lot about the differences in generations. And one of the most important things to this generation now is having purpose and impact. And you give somebody purpose and impact, or you help them. You don't give it to them. You help them discover that by showing them directly how to impact the business and how they can see that the business is growing because of them, because of their efforts. It's just very rewarding all around. But we have people that'll come in on their days off. We are open 5 days a week and everybody works a 4-day work week, and they will come in to work extra days or to fill in for other providers. And it's easy. It's not a hard ask. They see that they have the time open. and they pursue that. And I think that that also ties into that feeling of earning something and being in control of their lives and their finances.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if you don't have a formula where you can make more money based on your own merit, you're really just hoping that people like you. Geez, I hope
Mhm.
Erika likes me enough. And Erica's not, it's not about that. It's about, pardon me, here's the framework of how you make more money. And I think it's incumbent upon every business owner to create an environment in your practice where it is based on organizational merit. No one, it should transcend the feelings of how you feel about somebody. And it should not be as abstract. Your career is a very important thing, and your team is hitching their wagon to you with the responsibility that you're going to run it in a solid way. You have to have a fiduciary responsibility to keep your company afloat. And I think a lot of the errors that I had and many dentists have is that they conflate the business with their own identity. Like, it's serving me, I'm making enough, it doesn't really matter. No, your team is surrendering their opportunity to work for somebody else and work with you. It's a very serious responsibility. So you have to run a good business that's principles based. And it's just not in my wheelhouse to do things like this. My brain does not work this way. And I have such a strong desire to be liked by people. I can't say that anymore without the Steve Carell thing that from the from what's his name?
Yeah, yeah, from The Office.
Yeah, that guy from The Office. I don't need to be
Yeah.
liked. I like to be liked, but no, but it's true. I can't separate that. So I marvel at Erica's ability to be, principled and do the right thing, because at the end of the day, it creates a more stable business. Um, with what are the other efficiencies um, that you can point to
Yeah,
as
I'm glad
takeaways?
you Yeah, I'm glad you asked because I do want to give some tactical advice here too. When it comes to looking at the profit and loss statement, so make sure that you have a set day and time to review that every single month. One of the things that we do well is that if you wait until it's time to then find time for a meeting, it's just going to keep getting pushed back. So we set all of our profit and loss meeting dates a year in advance. Put them on the schedule. Make sure you're scheduling time with your implementer and the people that are in control of those results so that you're always communicating and that everybody's aware of where you're at and that you're measuring. When you're looking at your profit and loss statement, most oftentimes what I see is people have big, broad categories. So let's say the top line item just says collections or sales, and it's one lump sum, or labs, one lump sum, salaries, one lump sum. And so, what is difficult when you're trying to look at efficiencies or micro trends, like this is what happens. Like, that if you have a bill or if you have something that's increasing, it slowly increases until one day it gets to a point where you're like, holy smokes, like, where did all the money go? Well, it's been slowly eroding for months and maybe even years. So, you have to break up your categories into subcategories so that you can easily see any micro trends of expenses going up or down. So your collections, for instance, you really should have that broken down by bill type. Cash, insurance, third-party programs, have them. If you have multiple third parties, have each one have its own line item, so you can really see year over year how you're trending with the different types of payment methods that your patients are preferring to pay. The other thing goes, with labs, and you lump that in there. I mean, a lot of us use, things like Invisalign and now CT scans, guided surgeries, in addition to restorative labs. It's not just all restorative mostly anymore. And so you do need to be able to see to control those expenses by the lab that itself or the lab type to be able to monitor those trends. So that's going to be really key. The other thing is that whoever's handling the payroll side, which is one of the largest bills that you're going to have in your practice, one, looking at the fees to process payroll. So that's one of those things that either can gain you time by having a company do this or a program do this, but also potentially could save you money as well for doing the same thing. You don't need to be paying a premium to run your payroll unless you're getting some sort of um, return. We are saving 50% of our payroll processing expenses. Insane, by switching, to another company. So go out there. Anytime you are interviewing another company, I always say, try to do at least two or three. You have to find what fits your practice. Too often people will sign up for third-party programs, and they'll say, well, look at all these things that I get, and they don't use any of those features. Or to Dr. Craig's point earlier on, where he's like, I didn't look at dental intel, I didn't look at any of that. I did. So make sure that it fits your practice and pay for what you're using. People pay for stuff all the time that they're not even using. And one of those examples when we were looking at our bill or at our P&L is that we were paying for a television service, and we don't even have like TV or cable like in our practice, and we were paying for cable TV and honestly for years. And so that was an easy call just to call and cancel the service. So chances are there are a lot of things on the P&L that you don't realize that you're paying, especially with auto pay, or if somebody else is paying the bills. So please just take a look at what's going out the door and ensure that that's actually something you're using. Yeah, we're just closing in on an hour. Is there anything else, Dr. Craig, that you think I'm missing that would be really helpful to share?
No, I
Actually,
think,
I do.
yeah,
I
go
do.
ahead. Good.
Back to the point about developing somebody's potential. Sometimes you don't know if somebody has that potential until you start working with that person. And so one of the things that we have done intentionally in our practice is we have meetings where we present the problem and we have the team problem solve. And so now we're starting to see how their brains are working, how they're coming up with solutions, which ones are more engaged and wanting to be a part of that process. And that helps us to identify the potential for new positions for those team members based off of them doing it kind of organically versus saying, hey, this person's been here for a long time. They've been here for 10 years. So therefore, label office manager. I think we kind of go too quickly to giving people labels. And sometimes those people can fail, not because they didn't have the potential or the capacity to be able to be in it, but now they have this big label without the training or without the ability to kind of grow, and then it doesn't work out. And you might lose somebody. It was really great. It was just too soon. So we like to give people smaller projects before you start to give the bigger labels for the bigger positions. You can break it up. You don't have to have one office manager. We have multiple team leads in different departments, and each of them take on a specific part of the role. So again, it doesn't have to be one person if that fits your organization. It can be multiple.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable. I love this conversation, and I'm hopeful that that you as a dentist get a chance to share this with your team members. I always look to try to save people from the things that we ran into, and I think the big takeaways are, just promote from within, because values and alignment are the most important thing. I'd rather have someone that I respect and that has the same values and work ethic than me, even if it means it's going to be a longer training to do that. I think that's a better relationship. As Naval says, play long-term games with long-term people. It's always exciting to find outside things that could allure you, but I think the real benefit is long-term gains with long-term people. And also just the frequent communication, just realizing it's not this abdication, not that you choose your office manager, your team lead, and you hand them the keys and never check in with them again. It's going to lead to failure. But it's actually just consistent communication and refining, and don't try to find your exact replacement. Don't try to find someone that's exactly like you. Try to find someone that covers your weaknesses. And if you're fortunate enough to use some personality testing, we have our favorites. You can email me about those. But if you use personality testing, find the yin to the yang. That's going to be accretive to the overall organization. And then just really help people grow. And one of the things that always changed my life was that quote, if you treat people as they currently are, you make them worse. If you treat people as they can become, you help them become what they're capable of becoming. So, believe in your people and really get out of the way and set the goals. And I think a lot of people have some negative emotions around delegation. They think they're delegating like the grunt work. No, I love when Erika delegates to me the stuff that I love to do. She tells me, I need you to go, be a part of this meeting and dial in from your ranch for an hour and give them the whole story. I'm like, I will pay to do that. Versus like Erika sitting, having coffee on a Tuesday when she works from home and has uninterrupted time, and she can spend hours on spreadsheets. Like, shoot me. That's her zen, to
Yeah.
be home with her laptop in a comfortable spot and just crank out work. Let's, so just, it's just find the people, and it's really quite simple. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's really quite simple. So please share this with your office managers and any promising team. Let them see what we've created and use this as a framework. And of course, if you really want to take the next level, there's the mastermind. It's massive value for the team. Erika and I were just talking. She was on a mastermind call, and one of our longtime masterminders told us that, hey, my office manager just resigned. She's like, give me her number. I'm going to call her myself. So it's the support networking. If you think about with Dr. Darren, when he had a whole bunch of team leave, he was literally brought to tears, and Erika and Vanessa were on the phone strategizing, and it's a great support system and really accretive to your practice. So Erika, I really want to thank you. Actually, I'll give you something if you want to close. I don't want to end with that. Is there anything you want
Yeah,
to say?
no, I was just saying it's just that the power of community, and that's why I think the obviously this is your podcast and I love it, and it's a lot of useful information, but the intent behind it and behind the mastermind and Bulletproof in general is we need community, we need people. Sometimes we can be great problem solvers, and I certainly think I'm one of those, but you need outside eyes, and you need people, and you need mentors. You need people to challenge you, to inspire you, to help you stay the course, and um, and ultimately that has the best interest. And I think that's why it's been so powerful to be connected to the mastermind and to help other people in this community. It just serves like a higher mission that we have, is just to help each other out. The you know, last thing I think that we can also talk about, if you're new to this or wanting to learn more about the business side of dentistry, we also have a summit as well. And the Bulletproof Summit is designed for teams, total team learning. So if you do, again, have people that you believe have potential, bring them to the summit, invest in them and their learning and education. I'm so grateful that I had, somebody like you, Dr. Craig, to invest in me, and it allowed me to really have a bigger, greater impact on the organization longer term. Um, and so, uh, yeah, do it for your team. I know that they'll be very grateful for everything that you do, and in turn, they treat the business in kind. So that's what you want. You can't tell people what to do without having that emotional connection. The more you do for others, then they reciprocate that same type of care.
Yeah. And I can always tell a practice that's going to fail, or a failing practice, because the narrative of the leader is people don't care and people are not the same. And I can't get good people. Good people are created. They're not just found. So unfortunately, it's the hard work you got to do. Your organization won't outgrow you as the character and the skills that you have as a leader. So if you are registered for Summit, kudos to you. If you have not brought your team, there's still an opportunity to do so. We still have a couple seats left, August 8th and 9th at the beautiful Ritz-Carlton Resort. We sent Erika there to do a recon mission. And she said the place is absolutely gorgeous. So August 8th and 9th, bulletproofsummit.com. You will see all of us. Bring your team. Erika, I want to thank you not only for 16 years, but just for always making me better and helping me grow and helping me become a better leader. It's you worked on me just as much as you worked on the organization. And that's why for so long you were known as the practice optimizer, because she optimized everything she put her hands on. There's a lot of her fingerprints, whether it's her mother or her sister or other leads that she's grown in this organization. So thank you for pouring yourself into this and the podcast to help others that you don't even know. And if this was valuable, drop a like, drop a comment, send it to your team. And we hope to see you at the summit. Thank you, Erika.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Don't hang